played a game and thought, oh wow, that was amazing. They have to make a sequel but then you realize there isn't a sequel. You'll never continue being in this world that was built up for you to enjoy. You want more, but you've been denied the chance for that to happen. Now, some of these in this list may have a possible sequel in their future. Others are doomed to live with only one game to their name, even though you thought the game was a beautiful experience that you remember fondly. This can be due to the company folding, finances, or unpredictable success that isn't worth gambling on. There will be huge spoilers as I will be talking about endings or major plot points. You have been warned. Number 10, Vanquish.
A little warmer reception than I was hoping for.
This wild action shooter game came out on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2010, blasting its way into people's hearts with its over-the-top gameplay. You control Sam Gideon, a DARPA agent in the super fancy action suit that you see sliding on the cover. The overall plot is that America launches a space colony which Russia takes over and targets American cities. Sam, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Burns, and a group of dudes go up to the space colony to take it back and save America. Plot twists happen and it turns out that the President of the United States planned to use the weapon on Moscow, stating that it would be an economic stimulus package. Certain people die, certain people escape. And it opens up for a definite sequel with more insane suit flips, time stopping, and more. The reason it needs a sequel, most of all, is that the gameplay was pure fun and made you feel so badass when you triggered AR mode. Number 9, Octopath Traveler.
I will not fail. Victory shall...
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty curious as to where Octopath Traveler will go next. The game took place in only a section of the world, so what if they opened up the world to new places? I wouldn't mind devouring the new soundtrack that would result from opening up the world a bit. Delicious, delicious music.
I am ready.
While the plot of Octopath kind of tied up with the true final boss, Galdera, there are still continuations of stories I'd like to see. Will the sacred flame continue to burn, or will something warp it? What other forbidden magics are being held in Atlasdam? While I would like to continue the stories of our favorite characters, I wouldn't mind a new set of protagonists to further explore the untouched world of Octopath Traveler. Now, many of you are probably saying, hey, there's a prequel happening right now. And yeah, I know. I was excited when I ran through this short article until I came to this. Octopath Traveler, Champion of the Continent, will be free to play with in-app purchases. But I do have some actual good news, in that there will be a home console game in the Octopath universe, and that it's being worked on. So hooray! A sequel that will hopefully come out! Number 8, Lost Odyssey. Lost Odyssey had a strong story, a great array of characters, and a few unique elements tossed in here and there, such as the visual novel-style memories some of the immortals would experience during the game. The game was released in 2007 and was developed by Mistwalker, the company that was founded by Hironobu Sakaguchi, creator of the Final Fantasy series. The game was Xbox 360 exclusive. That was probably their first mistake, as the Xbox console never ends up selling well in Japan. Thankfully, it had more success in the West, list, prompting Microsoft to consider making Lost Odyssey into a series. We are now 12 years into the future since its release, and there hasn't been much in the way of reviving the IP. Although, as recently as December 2018, Microsoft renewed Lost Odyssey's trademark. So that's a step in the right direction if we want a sequel to emerge.
That was a close one.
Number 7. Demon's Souls. Although my love for the Dark Souls series is deep, I can't forget about the one that started it all. Demon's Souls. Originally, I had started with Demon's Souls when it had come out. I beat the first boss after lots of frustration, only to fall off the highest point in the hub area and die. I thought I had to beat another boss to regain my physical self, and rage quit. Many years later, and after beating Dark Souls, I decided to give it another go, and I absolutely loved it. The overall creepiness level of the game was high. The levels I got to explore were tough, on the verge of fucking ridiculous. But it gave a number of memorable moments as you collect the souls to quell the all-powerful Old One. I'll never forget the blind boss that tracked you down by sound. That was awesome. Anyways, as a fan, I would love to see a sequel, preferably with the bad ending, as it ends with,
"The Old One sensed a new and powerful demon by its side. And before long, the world will be engulfed by the deep fog. Bring more souls."
Unfortunately, there isn't a likely cause to make a sequel. From Software's Hidetaka Miyazaki looked back on Demon's Souls with fondness, but states he doesn't like looking at previous works. From a financial standpoint, if Sony were to make a sequel, chances are they would like to make a new IP altogether to attract as many potential customers as possible, instead of dragging up something that fans liked ages ago. Number 6. Brutal Legend.
Fought his way from Rudy to rock god. Hell yeah!
The rocking action-adventure game, starring Jack Black as Eddie Riggs, was an amazing love letter to heavy metal fans. It included loads of big-name stars, including Ozzy Osbourne, Lita Ford of The Runaways, and Rob Halford of Judas Priest. The game was goofy, but it had a solid story and great characters, with Jack Black nailing Eddie's dumb but lovable personality.
I'm supposed to think you're a nun, but I know you're really some kind of big ugly demon, so let's have it. Aha! I knew it! Big ugly demon.
Kinda sexy though in a weird way.
So why wouldn't this be turned into a sequel if it's so goddamn good? Sales of the game were average at best, with the marketing doing some damage by not specifically telling potential players what kind of gameplay it had, focusing on showing off Jack Black's involvement and the music. They did have a sequel in the works, but it was cancelled and nearly ruined the game company due to the amount of investment they took into the sequel. Thankfully, the company, Double Fine, managed to recover but are a little hesitant now. Tim Schafer said in an interview with PlayStation Lifestyle regarding a possible sequel with, "That's a fun universe too, that I'd love to be back to. But now we've been in sequel mode for a few years, and it'd be nice to do something new, but never say never." Number 5. Resonance of Fate or End of Eternity. Known as the Dark Souls of turn-based RPGs by some fans, due to the level of planning you must do, Resonance of Fate or End of Eternity was a new IP with a shiny new battle system that pulled away from the bland turn-based style that many JRPG fans were getting a bit tired of. The game was set in a semi-apocalyptic world where pollution had caused severe environmental changes, making the world hostile to human life. There was a system called Zenith that tied human lives to quartz stones, making them immune to the pollution while giving them predetermined social statuses and lifespans. This leads to the main plot of fighting against fate and Zenith. Later on, you learn that Basil, the tower that humanity is living on, is slowly purifying the world of this poisonous gas. During the ending, you see the main characters outside the tower in a grassy field, giving way to a new world. The potential for a sequel is immense. What with the opening up of an entirely new world for our characters. Not only that, there's a detailed plot that was left underdeveloped during the game, which could bring forth countless ideas for a sequel. If the game had been developed by any other company, it may have had a chance at getting another game, due to Tri-Ace focusing on their other IPs, such as Star Ocean, and collaborating with titles like Final Fantasy. Resonance of Fate is bound to be forgotten. Number 4, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem.
Your power flows from me. Without me, you are nothing.
Development hell is what Eternal Darkness's director Denis Dyack knows all too well. The game Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem was a unique gameplay experience, to say the least, with multiple mindfuckeries in the game that messed with the player. That and the Lovecraftian setting, where 3 ancients stand as entities watching and waiting for the game to unfold. The game has you experience multiple perspectives from various points in time, building on the plot to end the chosen ancients' plan to rule Earth. When Denis Dyack was part of Silicon Knights, they had breached its agreements and misappropriated trade secrets from Epic by basically using the Unreal Engine to build their own game engine. This landed them in a $9.2 million payment in damages to Epic. Denis started up a new company, Precursor Games, and showed off the title Shadow of the Eternals, which he had hoped would garner support. But by then, Eternal Darkness was already 10 years old. A Kickstarter was established for Shadows of the Eternals, and was set with a $1.5 million goal that failed. Undeterred, Denis set up a second Kickstarter, at the modest aim of $750,000, which concluded with less than half of that goal. The company said it would still develop the game, but a year after the failed Kickstarters, Precursor Games co-founder Kenneth McCulloch was arrested and jailed on child abuse image charges, and later was also charged with sexual assault. No funding and bad press, it sunk any chances of Eternal Darkness getting a spiritual successor.
I didn't bring up a weakling, not a scared wretch of a girl.
You kept all this from me. You kept me alone. You shared nothing with me.
Number 3, Bloodborne. Ah, Bloodborne. You were the quicker, flashier Souls game that many loved, including myself. I've lost track of how many records I've started with this game, pumping hundreds of hours into the game and never getting bored with it. The gothic Victorian era setting, the Lovecraftian elements, the beasts and creatures, the hidden lore and endless fan theories. It truly is an amazing game. Since it's so successful, there must be a sequel in the works, right? The developers of From Software have stated many times that they aren't very keen on developing sequels and prefer to work on new, fresh IPs. Much like the fate of a Demon's Souls sequel, Bloodborne looks as though it will be a single game despite being in a world rich with lore and the vast unknown. At best, the hope for a sequel is highly unlikely, but really, it's not gonna happen.
You were at my side all along.
Number 2, Enslaved: Odyssey to the West. Developed by Ninja Theory, Enslaved: Odyssey to the West was a beautiful and fun action-adventure game that pulled inspiration from the story Journey to the West, with notable names of characters referencing the English translation of the work. The story is set in a post-apocalyptic future after a global war that decimated Earth, destroying most of the human race, with the surface world being littered with robots known as mechs, left over from the devastating war. After escaping a slave ship, Monkey has a slave headband placed on his head and must escort Trip, who wants to return to her village or risk having his head blown off. As they travel, they find the village has been destroyed and that their goal switches to revenge mode. After fighting through the mechs and a noble pig sacrificing himself for Trip's cause, They reach the pyramid where loads of humans are hooked up to a simulation that shows life before the world was destroyed by the war. They unplug the simulation machine person, waking up all of the people from their false dreams, and that's it. The massive cliffhanger screams for a sequel to sort out their situation. Now that they've awoken a bunch of people, where do they go from there? Will the people hate them for what they did? Did they even realize what was going on? Will they rebuild humanity? Are the mechs still ravaging the lands? There are too many things, though that will most likely be the ending. Tamim Antoniades, founder of Ninja Theory, had this to say when he announced Enslaved 2 was shelved for good. Enslaved should have done better, he admitted. Right now, we should have been doing a sequel and perfecting that sequel and doing what franchises do, which is get better over time. But because that didn't happen, we've not expanded to 2 teams like we intended to, so we've remained a smaller shop. It's too bad, really. It was an excellent game.
Did I do the right thing?
Before we get to number 1, here are a few notable titles that didn't quite make this list. Number 1, The Legend of Dragoon.
I had a dream that I could fly. I can feel each moment as time goes by.
This has been my number 1 on my most wanting sequels since I played the game 18 years ago. When I was in school, I made a presentation on why this game was so fucking awesome, and I got full marks for it. The game had voice acting in it, something that baffled my little brain at the time when I was smothered with text-only RPGs, and where I would pronounce shit wrong because I had never seen the word before. Ether, Bahamut, Leviathan, which I sometimes still say, it can't be helped. Anyways, this game had a new battle system that made you pay attention to the shit you were attacking, else your attacks would be the equivalent of whacking your enemies with a sock. The timed attacks had their own combos, evolving to 7 hits at a time, with the move title being shouted out at the end.
Blossom Storm!
The story was a bit cliche, but the visuals, the music, the feel of the game was great. Critics, however, were a bit harsher with the game, with reviewers saying that the combo system required too much precision. The titular element of Dragoon transformation was deemed inconsequential to gameplay, and that the game's battles were considered repetitious due to an excessive frequency of random encounters. Guess they haven't played most JRPG games then. Despite a few faults, The Legend of Dragoon was deemed a cult classic. A sequel was planned, as heard from the producer of the game, Shuhei Yoshida, who said that Legend of Dragoon 2 was put into pre-production after I left the Japan studio, but was eventually cancelled for some unknown reason, and the team members moved on to different projects. The unknown reasons still remain unknown today, but if I had to guess, it was probably the lukewarm reception of the game, and the company focusing on other IPs such as Ape Escape, Ico, and Shadow of the Colossus.